I never trusted carnivals. Maybe it was the chipped paint on the rides or the flickering lights, but something about them always felt off. Yet, there I was, trailing behind Kevin and his cousin Lily into the decrepit carnival that had popped up on the outskirts of town. It was Halloween night, and Kevin had been relentless in convincing us to come. Unlimited rides and free candy, he'd said, flashing that boyish grin of his. His enthusiasm was infectious, but I couldn't shake the unease gnawing at my gut. The entrance was a gaping mouth of a grotesque clown, its peeling red lips grinning wickedly. Charming, I muttered, stepping through with Lily. Kevin bounded ahead, a flashlight in hand, his laughter echoing through the hollow carnival. Inside, the air was thick with a mix of burnt popcorn and something metallic, almost like blood. Broken rides loomed like skeletons under the dim lights, and the calliope music wheezed a haunting tune that grated on my nerves. "Are we really doing this?" Lily whispered, her voice barely audible over the creaks and groans of the place. "Relax," Kevin called back. "It's just a bit of fun." We passed empty game stalls and faded posters, the eyes of painted clowns seeming to follow us. Then, out of the shadows, a man stepped forward, a clown. His makeup was smeared, his oversized suit stained and tattered. In one hand, he held a balloon that bobbed unervingly in the still air. "Welcome to the best show in town," he rasped, his voice grating like rusty hinges. "Care for something special?" Before Lily or I could respond, Kevin said, "Sure. What have you got?" The clown's grin widened, revealing teeth too sharp to be human. "Follow me," he said, turning toward a darkened tent at the edge of the carnival grounds. "I don't like this," I hissed, grabbing Kevin's arm. "Come on, Mia," he said, rolling his eyes. "What's Halloween without a little adventure?" Against my better judgment, I followed, Lily sticking close to my side. The tent loomed ahead, its striped fabric swaying in the faint breeze. Inside, the air was stifling. The clown lit a lantern, casting flickering shadows across the space. Shelves lined the walls, filled with jars. At first, I thought they held candy, but as I got closer, I realized the truth. Teeth. Human teeth. Some jars held bones, others preserved eyeballs, floating in murky liquid. My stomach churned as I backed away, bumping into Kevin. "Let's go," I whispered urgently, my pulse pounding in my ears. The clown blocked the exit, his grin now a snarl. "Leaving so soon? But the fun's just starting." Panic surged through me. Lily clutched my hand tightly, her face pale. "Kevin, do something," I pleaded, but Kevin didn't move. Instead, he smirked. "Relax, Mia. This is all part of the experience." I stared at him, disbelief washing over me. "What are you talking about?" "You'll see," he said, his tone unnervingly calm. The clown stepped closer, pulling out a long, gleaming knife. Lily and I stumbled back, knocking over a jar that shattered on the floor. The sound seemed to snap Lily into action. This is incredible," she exclaimed, stepping toward the clown. What was she doing? My heart hammered as I watched her pick up one of the jars. "Your collection, it's so unique. You must be an artist?" The clown hesitated, his expression shifting to one of confusion and pride. "You think so?" he asked, lowering the knife slightly. "Absolutely," Lily said, her voice steady. "I mean, look at this craftsmanship. It's inspiring." While she distracted him, I scanned the tent for a way out. My eyes landed on the flap behind the shelves. I tugged on her arm, nodding toward it. She gave the clown a dazzling smile. "Could you show me how you work?" As the clown turned to grab something, Lily and I bolted. We tore through the tent, knocking over shelves and jars in our panic. Behind us, the clown roared in fury. We didn't stop running until we were back at the carnival's entrance. I doubled over, gasping for breath, but the relief was short-lived. Kevin was there, waiting for us. "What the hell was that, Kevin?" I shouted, my fear giving way to anger. He shrugged, his face calm. "You weren't supposed to run. What are you talking about?" Lily demanded, stepping in front of me. Kevin's expression darkened. "This was never about fun. It was about you, Lily." Her confusion mirrored my own. "Me? You think I've forgotten what your family did to mine?" he snarled. The lies, the betrayal? This was my chance to even the score. I stared at him in horror as the pieces clicked into place. Kevin had brought us here on purpose, lured us into the clown's trap. You're insane, Lily said, her voice trembling but defiant. No, he said, pulling a knife from his jacket. I'm just finishing what your family started. Before he could strike, Lily moved faster than I thought possible. She grabbed a piece of broken glass from the ground and slashed at him, the sharp edge catching his arm. He yelped, dropping the knife. Run! Lily screamed, but I couldn't move. My feet were rooted to the spot as she fought him off, her strength fueled by desperation. It ended with Kevin sprawled on the ground, blood pooling around him. Lily stood over him, the glass shard clutched in her trembling hand. He would have killed us, she said, her voice hollow. I nodded, though the words felt far away. The clown's laughter echoed in the distance, reminding us we weren't safe yet. We ran again, this time not stopping until the carnival was a distant memory. Even now, weeks later, I can still hear Kevin's voice in my nightmares, accusing and bitter. The carnival is gone, but the scars it left behind remain, a chilling reminder of the monsters that lurk, not in shadows, but within us all. I rented the old plantation house near Bayou Bridge on a whim. It wasn't the type of place I'd usually stay. A crumbling estate with peeling wallpaper, creaking floors, and an unsettling quiet that made you feel watched even when you were alone. But for a writer seeking inspiration, it was perfect. The remoteness of the Louisiana bayou gave me the solitude I needed to focus on my novel. Or so I thought. The days passed uneventfully at first. Mornings were filled with the soft hum of cicadas, the occasional splash of fish in the murky water, and the distant calls of birds. At night, the house came alive with unsettling noises, wood groaning, faint whispers of wind through cracks, and sometimes what sounded like footsteps. I chalked it up to my imagination. After all, I'd been reading about urban legends for inspiration, particularly the one about the Bayou Butcher. The Butcher, as the stories went, was a killer who roamed the bayou decades ago. He'd dress in a scarecrow costume, complete with a sack over his head, and lure people to their deaths. They said he performed rituals in an old barn on a plantation nearby, though no one had ever confirmed which one. Halloween night arrived with a heavy fog that blanketed the swamp like a shroud. I decided to stay in, light a few candles, and push through a bout of writer's block. The air was thick with humidity, and the only sound was the faint croak of frogs outside. That's when I heard the knock. It was a single, deliberate rap against the door, enough to send my heart into a sprint. I froze, pen hovering over my notebook. No one should have been out here. My closest neighbor was at least 2 miles away, and I hadn't seen another soul since I arrived. Hello, I called out, forcing my voice to stay steady. No response, just silence. Cautiously, I approached the door and peered through the peephole. My breath caught in my throat. A figure stood there, a scarecrow, or at least someone dressed like one. The burlap sack over his head was crudely stitched, with uneven holes for eyes and a jagged slit for a mouth. In one hand, he held a butcher knife. The blade glinted faintly in the moonlight. Go away, I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. The figure tilted his head, but didn't move. Seriously, this isn't funny. Leave! Suddenly, his arm shot out, slamming against the glass pane of the door. I stumbled back with a yelp. The pane shattered, and shards rained onto the floor as the scarecrow began pulling himself through the broken frame. Panic surged through me. My phone was upstairs, and the nearest help was miles away. I bolted for the stairs, my socks slipping on the polished wood. Behind me, I heard the crunch of glass under his boots. He was inside. I reached the attic and slammed the door shut, throwing my weight against it as I fumbled for the lock. My hands were shaking so badly, it took me 3 tries to turn the bolt. I scrambled back, scanning the room for anything I could use as a weapon. My phone was in the corner, and I snatched it up, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. 911, what's your emergency? The operator asked. There's someone in my house, I whispered urgently. He's dressed like a scarecrow, and he's got a knife. Please send help. Stay on the line, man. Officers are on their way. Can you lock yourself in a room? I'm in the attic, I said, glancing at the flimsy wooden door. It wouldn't hold for long. Then I heard it, a heavy thump above me. My heart plummeted. He was on the roof. Ma'am, are you still there? The operator's voice crackled. Yes, I whispered. Something scraped against the attic skylight, and I looked up to see the noose. It dangled from above, swinging gently as if beckoning me. Please hurry, I begged. The rope dropped lower, the loop widening as if it had a life of its own. I knew I couldn't stay here. Clutching the phone, I spotted an old service ladder tucked in a corner and dragged it to the opposite wall. I climbed down as quietly as I could, the rickety steps groaning under my weight. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out all other sounds. The barn wasn't far. I sprinted across the yard, my bare feet sinking into the damp earth. The door was ajar, and I slipped inside, ducking behind a stack of rotting hay bales. The air reeked of mildew and something else, something metallic and sickly sweet. I gagged, covering my nose with my sleeve. In the dim light, I saw symbols scrawled on the walls, drawn in what looked like dried blood. Bones, animal or human, I couldn't tell, were scattered across the floor. My stomach churned, and I pressed myself deeper into the shadows, trying to steady my breathing. The sound of sirens in the distance was the sweetest thing I'd ever heard. I stayed hidden until I saw the flash of blue and red lights through the cracks in the barn walls. When the deputies found me, I was shaking so badly I couldn't form coherent sentences. They searched the property, but found no sign of the man, only muddy footprints leading into the swamp. They told me about the murders, how the victims were found near the bayou with their throats slit and strange symbols carved into their skin. The legend of the Bayou Butcher wasn't just a story. When I mentioned the barn, one of the older deputies frowned. This barn, he asked. I nodded. His face paled. This was his place, where he performed his rituals. I moved out the next morning. I couldn't stand another second in that house. But sometimes, late at night, I think about the noose dangling through the skylight, the muddy footprints leading into the swamp, and the symbols in the barn. And I wonder if the Bayou Butcher is still out there, waiting for his next victim.